What's up, everybody? George T from the wagon here. And this week we're going to be going up so we can get really low. We're doing a DubFab provided Hayburner steering box raise in a 5715 window. Speaking of going up, that drop is slow. This is Neil Walker's bus. He's currently running a 4-inch narrowed Wagons West air ride beam. You notice that dude's hanging pretty low right there. So he brought it in for a steering box raise. Me and Neil have been friends for a long time. My homie's hooking me up. We're doing trade out work. That's nice. Neil is trading me that to do this right here. So I'm coming through and we're doing the preparation needed to remove this frame section. The Hayburner kit we have is this entire frame section here we're going to replace. All right, so I've come through. I've got a mark there and I've carried it down to the front section of the lip right there. So even if I do a bunch of grinding here, my line still exists on that end there. Same thing over here. I've gone through and coiled our brake pedal bolt, everything for holding in the steering box, and I've coiled the 2 bumper brackets here. So when you do a steering box raise, you are raising the steering box. This whole thing is going to go up this direction, this angle. It basically follows the angle of your steering column, and the whole thing is going to rise in that direction. So we shouldn't have to mess with too much of that. Since we're going in this direction upward, we will have to do some clearancing here, but that should be left intact complete, so that'll be good. We are replacing this entire piece of metal around here in the Hayburner kit with a fresh piece. We are changing out the brake pedal with a new modified pedal. We'll be removing the master cylinder and the pedal in order to remove that frame section there. A little tip I got from Michael at DubFab is bring your steering box up in place, mount it at the top also before you weld one thing in, just to make sure your alignment looks good, everything is where it should be. With the hole in the floor and a pretty captive hole in the column, I think there shouldn't be too much problem with it, but I think that's why he's telling you. That way you make sure you index this frame section in the proper area. So here we have the Hayburner steering box raise kit. And by kit, I mean, I'm pretty sure it comes with everything you see here. This comes out of DubFab. That's where Neil purchased it from Michael Anderson at DubFab. This is a modified pedal, because obviously you raise that steering box. This is going to occupy that space. They put that nice arch in it, and they give you a bit of reinforcement on the back side of it. So this is going to weld in around that back section over by your master cylinder, and this is going to get boxed in by that front piece. We're going to take a few measurements of the current steering wheel position and make sure that after we do the steering box raise, we know exactly how much we need to lower it here. Because I'm going to raise the frame section first, and then I'll do shortening it. So areas that I'm going to measure, collar, like your knee knocker collar, to the bottom of the steering wheel there. So I'm coming up with 5 inches. 5-inch space from knee knocker to base of steering wheel. So we're looking at 1.5 inches there. To start with, we're going to remove the steering wheel. We're going to move the turn signal switch. I'm going to do the 2 screws here at the knee knocker and get this thing ready to where we can drop the steering box out of the bus. For our next step, we're going to be removing the drag link. This is the connection point between your steering box and your pitman arm on your front beam. So we're going to use a tie rod popper and get this off of here. It's held on by a 17 millimeter. And then we got 4, I believe 17 millimeters holding the steering box up in place that we're going to take off. steering box is removed. Our next step is we're gonna loosen up the master cylinder. I'm not gonna disconnect, I'm just gonna slide it back so I can get the pin and the pedal out of this section of the frame. This pedal stop is not on the new piece. You see how there's no stop for the pedal on it, meaning on the upward stroke. So I would assume that this is gonna need to get removed off of this frame section and welded back onto this frame section here. We removed the bolt off the back side of the pedal. I got 2 bolts removed from the master cylinder, and now I'm going to remove that pin, or I'm sorry, that cotter pin from the pedal pin, so we can separate the 2 of these pedal to the brake plunger. Forgot about that. There's a 13 millimeter at the top of this pedal that we want to disconnect so the pedal can come away from it. Correction. Those are 2 14 millimeters. Early bus. Just as early bug. Everything that is normally 13 on your bug will be a 14 millimeter. My time lapse shut off there. That pin is stuck in the pedal. So if you have the same kind of result happening, this pin will come completely separate from the brake pedal. So what I did is I removed the 19 millimeter nut on this side of the frame rail and removed the whole pin, and then had this all drop out as one assembly with that attached. This, as you can see, this is fused to this via rust, but it's not to the pedal. So I'm gonna have to address this to reuse this again, since we are changing his pedal over there. Steering box removed, brake pedal removed, and obviously brake rod removed. So this whole frame section's got to get cut out of there. You're going to be cutting along here and here, and then separating it from everything in the front here, and that whole Hayburner piece just goes right in there. And then we're going to have to divot. Usually I just do it with a body hammer. I'll put a little raise right there. So the next step is going to be starting the process of dissecting that out of there. I know I have to replicate this, so I'm going to take the time. I did a little line drawing, and I'm going to take some measurements. This frame section will not change. It's going to be the same after this installation. So I'm going to measure from the front of this frame rail to the front of that to know where I need to place this here. It's like 8 centimeters. I'm also going to take some measurements from original frame rail to support over here. We got that first frame section cut out. There's still this upper area to contend with that will be basically coming out this way with that red angle grinder you saw me using. And then I have to strip the majority of this out of here. So it wants to occupy this space right here. So you see what they give you? This is gonna go under the bottom of it. That would actually go down there. You see it's the same shape, but we gotta cut that shorter because we're gonna stitch it in there, and it's gonna get stitched in here, and it's gonna get burned in here as well. But we gotta make this piece fit here. I'll get you guys a view of that up there. I'm not sure what the camera's picking up because I can't see anything. I'm sure it might be interesting. Onward. So that's where I got yesterday. This here, I'm almost contemplating using panel bond, because if you can see, that's very rusty. It's pitted. I could probably put my thumb through that. So welding to that is not even an option. So I think I'm going to use panel bond along here, and then I'll end up stitching it to this with a welder. I got to remove this second layer right here, because I'm going to feel more comfortable when I bring my piece in. And I'm actually going to weld to the bottom of it. So I'm going to slide it under and do my welds to that frame section right there. So that's the piece dry fit in there. It's just sitting there. She fits nicely. She fits in place. We got to work on getting that piece in there, the outer housing that holds it in. Make sure we get the brake pedal aligned. Everything will be bolted in place, including steering box, before I weld anything in. I may have to put a tack or two here, but I'm going to get it all bolted in to make sure we keep the right plane, because if you can't this just the slightest bit, your steering box is not fitting into your car. So you want to make sure it's all the way mounted up on top and everything. I'm going to put the steering box on and actually put it in place to know that this frame section is where it needs to be. I'll also put the pedal back in, but we've got that sucker mocked up. You saw I started cutting this out and I completely forgot to film it. It happens sometimes. So you saw just the last cut on it, but that's basically clearance for the box to go up into this space. Normally it sits down here. Now we're going to occupy this space with steering box. So we got it mocked up in there. We're going to get the steering column bolted all back in place, and then we'll put a couple tack welds in place. This piece was in, and as you see, I got a ladder set up there. My assistant Dean was inside guiding it into place. So what we want to do is have it actually bolted in place to actually tack it in. Unfortunately, what's going on now is my holes on the bottom do not line up. Those three are in up there, but the two bottoms don't. So I got to pull all this out now and put on the bench and see if I can make all 5 holes fit there. This is just common practice for anything aftermarket. I'm so used to it, it doesn't even faze me, and that's wrong. I should be upset right now, and I'm not. We're gonna pull it all back out, see if I can get that to actually fit all 5 holes of the steering box, and then we'll put it all back up here and mock it in place. I got that one. I just put a Tech screw through the bottom to hold it in place. That way I could dry fit everything inside there. When I am happy with it, we're gonna tack it all in. When I pulled the frame section out, I decided to tap all the holes out because I was having a little bit of difficulty hand threading them in. The problem I'm having right now is the span in the original frame is 1.75 millimeters wider than the span provided in the Hayburner frame section. That is too far of a discrepancy in my opinion, to try and force the other box on by oblonging the hole. So another solution has to be found. Another issue I'm running into is the box does not sit flush up against the bottom of the frame section. It is about 3 millimeters away from the frame. 3 millimeters is too much. We need every millimeter we can get. You saw in that last time lapse I was modifying the steering box to fit this frame section. I don't think that's right. The problem is, if Neil ever has a problem with the steering box in the future, he'll always have to modify every steering box going on it, or he'll have to always switch this clamp out to be with that bus. I'd rather have it to where any steering box will fit his bus. So I contacted Michael over at DubFab. Once again, this is a Hayburner product that Mike at DubFab distributes. This is not a DubFab built product. This is Hayburner. So he checked the ones that he has on the shelf and found one that fits a clamp perfectly. When I'm referring to the clamp, I'm referring to this part. He has a piece, or he has another frame section that fits one perfectly. I'm gonna go drive out to St. George right now. He's gonna drive the opposite way. When we meet in the middle, he's gonna give it to me. So that's gonna be the right thing to do for the customer. Not a customer, it's one of my best friends, so I gotta make sure that his bus is dialed. Me and Mike met halfway. Mike is in St. George, I'm in Las Vegas. We just met in Glendale, Overton to swap this piece out, and this one fits perfectly. Not only does the steering box butt up against the bottom, which the other one had about a 3 millimeter gap when you could get these top ones tight, but all 5 bolts fit perfectly. So I know they're capable of doing it right. They need better QC. They need better quality control on their parts. But thanks to Mike at DubFab, that was very cool of him. The dude drove 117 miles to meet me just now. We've had the steering box up and actually have it mounted here in place. This has not been shortened yet, but I want to make sure that this is in place. We're centered on our hole there. I made sure to center the column onto the pod, so we're all good there. And now I know that I can tack a few spots underneath, and the box is in the right place. And the frame is in the proper location as well. We've got our brake tab marked there. It's ending right where this starts. I already took my measurement before I cut the other one out, 8 centimeters, and that's actually 8 centimeters right there. And I lined that up to make sure it was in the center of the master cylinder. I could see that it's going to stop the pedal. So we're going to go ahead and weld that piece in place. I'm going to put a few marks on this so I can put it back in the exact same spot, and I'm going to clean up all the areas around here where I plan on actually welding it together. I'm going to use a scribe to mark everything, so even after I've done my cleaning, my line should still exist in the metal. Now I've got it marked. I'm going to take my one little screw I have in there out, and then I'll be able to clean all these areas in preparation for welding. Protection. If you're welding anything above you, it rains fire. These are leathers made for welding anything above head. So I pulse welded this because this, as you saw earlier in the video, this is rotted, guaranteed on the inside. And unfortunately, you can see I was popping through down there. All that I'm okay with, and I would clean those up. I hate when I blow through, but it's a reality when you're working on these buses. This piece is rotten on the inside. I'd freaking bet my life on it that it's rotten on the inside, which makes it thinner and more susceptible to blowouts. This is 14 gauge, and even with the machine turned down as low as I was comfortable with, I'm still blowing through on the thin parts. I expected this, so I'm confident this is secure, that I won't have any issue with it. All right, we put the frame section back in. I got the steering bolt or steering box bolted up to it, and it's going through the column and everything up front. I'm gonna go up there. We're gonna center it to the pod and make sure it's where the steering wheel needs to be before I burn anything in down here. I'm very happy with how this turned out. It's right in line with the master cylinder. It's in the exact factory location because I measured the 8 centimeters to this point there, to that frame rail there. So I'm happy with that. So we'll be burning this in along here and here, one upper there, and some of that vertical we're gonna try and get. This is going to be the horizontal and vertical of both of these. All right, so let's finish burning this dude in. All right, when I first got Neil's bus here, the knee knocker was not centered to the pod. So I centered it to the pod to make sure that when I weld that frame section in, everything's about as true and as perfect as possible. I have everything bolted on the bottom. Now that I'm happy with it, I'll tighten these up right here, and then I'll put my tacks on the frame section down there. Let me see if I can get the light down there. I'm happy with where we're at in that hole. It's coming through. It's a little proud to the right, but I can't make it go any more left since it actually is centered on the knee knocker. Yeah, it doesn't just move, that's for darn sure. So I'm happy with where everything's at. We're gonna start putting tacks in place. Put my first tacks onto this frame rail here, then connect to our new piece down there here. I'm basically gonna put a tack on every corner where I need the thing to be held captive. We're gonna pull the steering box out so I can have access to the interior where it needs to be welded. But I want it all tacked in place first, and before I pull the steering box out, I'll probably do my full vertical burns here and this horizontal burn there. So we got everything welded. I need to still weld inside there. This really sucked. This is thin and rusty. This is thick and brand new. So I had to put a set of welds on this first, because it also, if you remember from the video, it has like a 1/4 inch gap. I had to put a stack on here first, a stack on there, and then attempt to connect the two. What a nightmare. This thin rusty metal is so freaking hard to weld to. But I need to drop the steering box so I can get the internals in there. I got that part done. We got our upper stitch done. Missed it the first time, had to go back and get the second time. I'll never lie to you guys, that's the way it was done. I'm happy with everything on here, and the battery died on that. I'm gonna drop this. We're gonna get that internal welded. I'm gonna see if I can do anything up here. It's very difficult to get the torch up there, the torch of the welder. I don't know if I can get it there and actually see what the heck I'm doing even with a mirror. Like I said, this one took 2 tries to get it on there. Yeah, let's get that thing dropped. I'm gonna put the brake pedal in, make sure that fits before I drop the steering box. And if all that works, yeah, we're one step closer. This will be the first part of the video. This is the frame section. The next video is gonna deal with shortening this. You can send these to Michael at DubFab and he does a much better job of shortening it. He actually machines the top of it and Woodruff keys it and re-threads it. It's a very expensive procedure though. So we are going to do the old school method. Cut the column, cut the shaft, shorten them down, weld them back together. I've got everything completed the way I wanted it completed. We got it taped off now. We're gonna put paint on everything. We have to make sure that this doesn't rust in the future. So we're gonna put a coating over everything. Interior, as much as I can spray on the top of it. Any weld I have, all that stuff. We're gonna try and make sure we get as much coverage to make sure that this rust, the stuff I was fighting over here, doesn't continue on to our new stuff. Alright, so we've got everything welded in. We've now painted it to protect it. The last thing I'm going to do, because I forgot to do, is we have to drill a hole through here so you can still access your fill hole here. So in order to figure out where to put this, I don't know what's going to show up, but I have a T drawn on here. And then that T, the upper part, carried on over to the frame section, which I can still see through my paint there. And then I'm going to take a measurement from that T point, meaning the intersection of that and my vertical line, and I already have a circle drawn here. It's just difficult to see because it's black on black. That I'm going to put a 3/4 inch hole right there. It should still allow access to get a wrench in there to turn this 8mm fill. I believe it's 8mm, might be bigger, to pull it out and actually add fluid to this sucker.